To those who are alone, or feel alone, or worse yet, feel abandoned. To all such I speak of the loneliest journey ever made and the unending blessings it brought to all in the human family. I speak of the Savior's solitary task of shouldering alone the burden of our salvation. Rightly, he would say, I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. I looked, and there was none to help, and I wondered that there was none to uphold me. Soon enough, he was arraigned before the Israelite leaders of the day. What further need have we of witnesses, they cried. He's worthy of death. With that, he was brought before the Gentile rulers in the land. Herod Antipas, the tetrarch of Galilee, interrogated him once, and Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor in Judea, did so twice. Pilate scourged Jesus and delivered him to be crucified. Such ecclesiastical and political rejection became even more personal when the citizenry in the street turned against Jesus as well. This was also a telling time among those who knew Jesus more personally. The most difficult to understand in this group is Judas Iscariot. We know the divine plan required Jesus to be crucified, but it is wrenching to think that one of his special witnesses, who sat at his feet and heard him pray and watched him heal and felt his touch, could betray him and all that he was for 30 pieces of silver. Of course, others among the believers had their difficult moments as well. Jesus left Peter, James, and John to wait while he ventured into the Garden of Gethsemane alone. Falling on his face in prayer, sorrowful unto death, the record says, his sweat came as great drops of blood as he pled with the Father to let this crushing, brutal cup pass from him. But of course, it could not pass. Returning from such anguished prayer, he found his 3 chief disciples asleep, prompting him to ask, could ye not watch with me 1 hour? So it happens 2 more times, until on his 3rd return he says compassionately, sleep on now. And take your rest, though there would be no rest for him. Of divine necessity, the supporting circle around Jesus gets smaller and smaller and smaller, giving significance to Matthew's short verse, all the disciples left and fled. Peter stayed near enough to be recognized and confronted. John stood at the foot of the cross with Jesus' mother, especially and always the blessed women in the Savior's life stayed as close to him as they could. But essentially, his lonely journey back to his Father continued without comfort or companionship. Now, I speak very carefully, even reverently, of what may have been the most difficult moment in all of this solitary journey to atonement. I speak of those final moments for which Jesus must have been prepared intellectually and physically, but which he may not have fully anticipated emotionally and spiritually. That concluding descent into the paralyzing despair of divine withdrawal, when he cries in ultimate loneliness, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" The loss of mortal support he had anticipated, but surely he had not apparently comprehended this. Had he not said to his disciples, "I am not alone, because the Father is with me. The Father hath not left me alone, for I do always those things that please him." I testify that he did please his Father perfectly, and that a perfect Father did not forsake his Son in that hour. Nevertheless, that the supreme sacrifice of his Son might be as complete as it was voluntary and solitary, the Father briefly withdrew from Jesus the comfort of his Spirit, the support of his personal presence. It was required, indeed it was central to the significance of the atonement, that this perfect Son, who had never spoken ill, nor done wrong, nor touched an unclean thing, he had to know how the rest of humankind would feel, us, the rest of us, when we did commit such sins. For his atonement to be infinite and eternal, he had to feel what it was like to die not only physically, but spiritually, to sense what it was like to have the divine Spirit withdraw, leaving one feeling totally, abjectly, hopelessly alone. But Jesus held on. He pressed on. The goodness in him allowed faith to triumph even in a state of complete anguish. The trust that he lived by told him, in spite of his feelings, that divine compassion is never absent, that God is always faithful, that he never flees nor fails us. Because Jesus walked such a long, lonely path utterly alone, we do not have to do so. May we stand by Jesus Christ at all times and in all things and in all places that we may be in, even until death. For surely that is how he stood by us when it was unto death, and when he had to stand entirely and utterly alone.